The stars above Colony Terra 9 blinked faintly in the night sky, distant, quiet, and cold. On the edge of the barren plain, Jason Hale sat alone near the rusted edge of a half-finished solar panel array. His breath curled in the frigid air as he took another sip of lukewarm coffee from a cracked ceramic mug that had survived 4 transfers between planets and 3 years of solitude. The silence out here was familiar, too familiar. He had gotten used to the stillness, the kind that hummed beneath the metal bones of the colony buildings. It wasn't the peace he enjoyed. It was the numbness. No calls, no visitors, just machines to repair and daily logs to report. And for the most part, Jason preferred it that way. People had let him down before. Silence didn't. But that night, something strange broke through the silence. It started as a low vibration in the ground, barely noticeable, like the rumble of distant thunder. Jason squinted up at the sky. A faint light moved across the horizon, slicing through the darkness in a way that didn't match any known satellite or transport schedule. It dipped lower, too fast, too sharp. A sharp burst of color, silver and green, flashed against the clouds. Then came the crash. A boom rolled across the plain, shaking the ground and setting off a few nearby wind alarms. Jason stood up slowly, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the glowing plume of smoke rising beyond the rocky ridge. He knew what protocol said. Report. Wait for command. Do not engage. But protocol didn't mean much to a man who hadn't spoken to another living soul in over 6 weeks. Grabbing his jacket, flashlight, and a small energy weapon he'd never actually used, Jason started toward the impact site. His boots crunched over dry earth as he climbed the hill, every step fueled by a strange mix of fear and curiosity. The wind picked up, howling softly as if warning him to turn back. But something in his gut told him that whatever had fallen from the sky was meant to find him. When he reached the top of the ridge, the sight made him freeze. A silver craft, sleek and curved like a blade, was half buried in the ground, steam hissing from its sides. The metal pulsed faintly, almost alive. No markings, no entry hatch. It didn't look human. It didn't even look manufactured. Jason inched closer, flashlight beams sweeping across the scorched soil. Then he saw her. A figure lay on the ground just beside the wreck, motionless. She looked humanoid, but not entirely. Her skin was a pale shimmer of silver blue, glowing slightly under the moonlight. Long, dark hair clung to her shoulders, and she wore a suit of armor that looked as though it had grown directly from her body. Jason's breath caught in his throat. He thought she might be dead, until her fingers twitched. He dropped beside her, unsure what to do. She wasn't bleeding, but something about the way she lay, too still, too cold, made him panic. Slowly, carefully, he slid his arms under her and lifted. She was heavier than she looked, and unnaturally warm against the freezing air. As he carried her back toward the colony, the ship behind him hissed once, then went dark. He didn't look back. Inside the metal shelter he called home, Jason laid her down on the only real bed he had, his own. He cleared space, moving tools and data pads, and covered her with a thermal blanket. Her breathing was shallow but steady. Her skin felt like warm metal, soft yet solid. Her face was calm. But every so often, a slight tremor passed through her body, like a signal trying to connect but failing. Jason sat across from her, staring, waiting. Every time he tried to come up with a logical explanation, he failed. She wasn't human. That much was clear. But she wasn't a monster either. There was something familiar in the shape of her face, the slope of her brow, the way her hands curled slightly like she was holding on to something she didn't want to lose. The night passed in silence. He didn't sleep. When she finally opened her eyes, it was like looking into twin galaxies. Silver swirls and faint pulses of light danced in her pupils, locking onto his face with intense focus. Jason stepped back instinctively, hands up. She didn't speak. She just looked around slowly, scanning the room like a machine, until her gaze settled on the plate of food he had left untouched on the table. Then back to him. Jason cleared his throat. I found you outside. Your ship crashed. You were unconscious. I brought you here. Still nothing. I don't know if you can understand me, but I mean no harm. You're safe. He felt ridiculous. She probably didn't understand a word. Or worse, understood everything and just didn't care. Then, to his surprise, she slowly sat up. The blanket slipped from her shoulders, revealing more of the glowing suit. Her movements were smooth, precise. But there was a stiffness, like someone rebooting for the first time in years. Jason watched as she examined her hands, then the room, then him again. He forced a weak smile. You hungry? I made. Well, it's just instant stew, but it's edible. Still no answer. Jason walked over to the table, grabbed the second plate, and returned to her side. He handed it over slowly. She took it, not delicately, but not aggressively either. She sniffed it, studied it, then placed it beside her without a word. So, no stew, he muttered. Got it. An awkward silence hung between them. He sat back down, tapping his fingers nervously against his knee. You know, most people don't fall from the sky, especially not in glowing silver suits. Still silence. He laughed softly. Right. You probably think I'm the weird one. Then, without warning, she tilted her head and opened her mouth. A static-like hum escaped her throat at first, then it cleared. Her voice was soft, mechanical but feminine, like it had been assembled just for this moment. Why? Jason blinked. Why what? She stared at him. Why? Help. He leaned forward slowly, heart thudding. Because you were hurt, and because no one deserves to die alone. Her eyes glowed faintly, the silver light deepening in her pupils. He laughed nervously. I know that sounds kind of stupid, but... She cut him off with a strange smile, small and brief. Dinner, she said suddenly, her voice clearer now. You said, dinner. Jason flushed. Yeah. I thought maybe you might want to sit and eat, like people do. Or aliens, I guess. She stood up without warning, her movements now smooth and elegant. She took a step forward, looking down at the table, then at him. Jason chuckled awkwardly. It's not much of a first date, I know. She paused for a moment, then slowly sat down, mirroring his posture. He sat across from her, uncertain, his fingers trembling slightly. He had invited a stranger from another world to dinner, and she had said yes. But before he could speak again, her hand suddenly reached across the table and touched his wrist. A shock passed through him, not pain, but knowledge. Visions, stars, a dying planet, a voice, his name, spoken from lips he didn't recognize, but somehow remembered. Jason gasped and pulled back. She looked at him carefully. Not. First time. You and I have met before. The room grew still. Even the hum of the generators outside seemed to hold its breath. Jason stared at her, heart pounding, mind spinning. What? What do you mean we've met before? She looked at him, not with curiosity this time, but sorrow. Deep, ancient sorrow. And then she whispered, You don't remember, yet. The silence that followed felt heavy, as if the room itself had shifted. Jason didn't know what to believe anymore. But he knew one thing for sure. His life had just changed forever. Jason barely slept that night, even as the quiet hum of the colony's systems pulsed in the background, and the heaters kicked on with their usual soft hiss. His thoughts ran in circles. The alien woman, Saphira, as he would later learn, was still sitting at the small table across from him, unmoving, her glowing silver eyes staring calmly into the dark. He tried to pretend it was all a dream. Maybe the crash, the strange ship, the way her fingers had sent images into his mind. It was all some sort of long overdue breakdown. Maybe he'd finally snapped after years alone out here. But every time he looked up, she was still there. Still watching. Still very, very real. The word she had spoken, not the first time, echoed louder than anything else. It had carved its way deep into his chest, digging into memories that didn't quite feel like his own. He got up around dawn, rubbing his face and mumbling something about coffee. She didn't respond. When he returned with 2 steaming mugs, one for him, one out of politeness, he found her still seated exactly as before. The mug he placed in front of her remained untouched, but she examined it like it was a relic from another time. Jason sat opposite her, sipping his drink and trying to keep his nerves from showing. Her presence filled the room like a storm held just at bay. Every move she made was deliberate, like she was calculating cause and effect with every motion. "You, don't sleep?" he asked cautiously. She blinked once, very slowly. "I do not require rest, only recalibration." He nodded, pretending to understand what that meant. "Right. Must be nice." Her gaze dropped to his hand. "Your pulse is elevated." Jason laughed softly. "Yeah, well, kind of hard to stay calm when I've got a space traveler in my kitchen. I am not here to harm you," she said, as if reciting something she had practiced. "Good to know." He took another sip. "So, are you gonna tell me what happened last night? Or was that just a teaser?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked around the room again. At the tools, the dusty shelves, the cracked screen on his wall console. She reached forward and tapped a finger lightly on the table. The metal beneath her fingertip glowed faintly, a soft ripple of light spreading outward like a ripple on a pond. Jason leaned forward slightly. "Is that something you're doing? Some kind of tech?" She pulled her hand back. "Memory recall is beginning. But your presence accelerates it." "My presence? What does that mean?" She looked at him again, more intensely this time. "You are not unknown to me. I sensed you before I fell. I followed your signal." Jason's stomach dropped. "Signal? I didn't send anything." She nodded. "Not intentionally. But your thoughts, your frequency, it called to me. It was old, buried, but familiar." Jason shifted uncomfortably. "I don't even know what that means." "You will," she said simply. There was a moment of stillness. Then, with a surprising amount of grace, she stood and walked toward the small kitchen unit. She stopped beside the shelf where Jason kept his mismatched plates and bowls, running her fingers across them like they were objects from a museum. She picked up a spoon and turned it over in her hand. "I've seen this before," she said quietly. "A gathering tool. A symbol of peace." Jason raised an eyebrow. "It's a spoon. We use it to eat cereal." She tilted her head. "Cereal." He chuckled. "Food. Crunchy. Comes in boxes." She didn't laugh, but a faint smile tugged at the corner of her lips. Jason wasn't sure if it was amusement or simply mimicry, but either way, it felt strangely human. He stood and walked toward the cooking unit. "All right, let's do this properly. You want dinner? I'll make dinner. You might not eat it, but at least we can go through the motions." She followed him silently, watching his every move with fascination. He opened a few storage drawers, pulled out some vacuum-sealed ingredients, and started the heating unit. As the scent of cooked protein and rehydrated vegetables filled the air, Jason tried not to think about the fact that he was making dinner for an alien. It felt surreal, like the kind of thing you tell your friends about after waking from a weird dream. Except this dream had glowing eyes and armor that shimmered like liquid silver. When he finally placed 2 plates on the table, Saphira examined hers with delicate curiosity. She touched the food, brought it close to her face, then set it down again. "I do not consume earth nutrients," she said softly. "I figured," Jason replied, sitting down. "Still, it's the thought that counts, right?" She looked at him. "That is a phrase of meaning." "Yeah." He nodded. Something people say when they know the effort matters more than the result. There was a pause. Then she reached toward the mug of coffee he had brought earlier, lifting it carefully and sniffing the steam. She didn't drink, but she held it close as if appreciating the warmth. Jason watched her for a moment, then took a breath. So, what are you exactly? Are you a soldier? A scientist? Some kind of explorer? I am Saphira. Designation: Starlink Observer. I monitor planetary anomalies and long-range consciousness signals. Consciousness signals, Jason repeated. Like dreams? She nodded. Or memories. Thoughts. Energy imprints. Some are powerful. Some last for centuries. Jason's hands froze around his mug. And you found something. Here. She looked at him directly. I found you. His voice dropped to a whisper. Why me? She looked away then, her eyes flickering with something unreadable. Because you were the only one who remembered, even if you forgot. Jason frowned. That doesn't make sense. It will, she said, her voice calm. In time. The air in the room felt heavier, as if it was thick with questions that neither of them were ready to ask out loud. Jason opened his mouth, then closed it again, unsure where to even begin. Finally, she stood. I must recalibrate. My systems are still damaged from the descent. Wait, he said quickly. Before you go, why were you crashing? Was it an accident? She turned her head slowly. It was a choice. Jason stood too, his heartbeat climbing again. You chose to crash here. I broke protocol, she admitted. Coming here without clearance, without shielding, without warning. It was forbidden. Why? He asked. She stepped toward him, slowly. Because I saw you in my visions. And I remembered. Jason's mouth went dry. Remembered what? You, she whispered. And with that, she turned and walked down the narrow hallway toward the makeshift medroom. Jason stood in the silence she left behind, his thoughts spinning, heart pounding. He looked down at the untouched plate of food, then at the spoon she had held. Nothing made sense, and yet, somehow, it all felt painfully familiar. He didn't know what Saphira truly was. He didn't know what she meant by visions or memories or broken protocols. But something inside him, the part of him that had felt empty for years, was starting to stir. Maybe he had invited her to dinner out of politeness. But her answer, her arrival, was beginning to change everything. Jason barely left the main compound for the next 2 days. Every hour seemed to peel back a new layer of mystery, and every moment with Saphira only deepened his confusion. She moved through the space like a shadow, quiet, graceful, and observant, never making more noise than a whisper and never staying in one place for long. He caught her staring at walls, touching old tools, and even pausing before mirrors, as if testing her own reflection. She didn't sleep, not in the way humans did. Instead, she stood perfectly still for hours at a time, eyes closed, body pulsing faintly with a silver-blue light, like she was listening to something far away. Jason had questions, so many that they tangled up inside him like wires in a broken circuit. But the more time he spent around her, the more careful he became about asking them. There was something fragile about her presence, like it existed on the edge of being torn away at any moment. Still, he couldn't ignore what she had said before. This isn't the first time we've met. That phrase haunted him, made him dig through old notebooks, long-forgotten files, even scraps of sketches from his childhood that he kept shoved in a metal drawer under his bed. And then he found it. A drawing, faded with age, crumpled at the corners, done in rough pencil on lined paper. It showed a figure, tall, silver, glowing, standing beneath a ringed moon. Jason had drawn it when he was 8 years old. He remembered that much. What he didn't remember was why. He stared at the sketch for nearly an hour before he took it to her. Saphira was standing near the window, staring out at the distant horizon, where the red mountains glowed under the rising sun. Her armor shimmered faintly in the morning light, shifting like liquid steel with each breath she took. He approached carefully. I found something. She turned slowly, her gaze soft but alert. Jason held up the paper. I drew this years ago, way before I ever knew aliens existed, before I ever came to Terra 9. I didn't even remember it until now. She took the drawing from him, holding it with delicate fingers, studying every line as though it was sacred. After a long silence, she looked at him. You remember more than you realize. I don't get it, Jason said. How could I have known what you looked like? How could I have drawn you when I was a kid? She set the drawing down on the table, then extended her hand. From her palm, a soft pulse of light expanded and formed a shape, a small glowing orb hovering in the air between them. Within it swirled stars, fragments of code, and an image that took Jason's breath away. It was a younger version of himself, much younger. A boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, standing in the middle of a wide open field, looking up at the sky. Behind him, hidden in the trees, was Saphira, watching, waiting. Jason staggered back. What is this? A memory, she said. A fragment, stored in your mind, dormant until now. You saw me once, long ago, during a reconnaissance mission. I was not supposed to be seen, but your consciousness detected me anyway. It left an imprint. He sat down, overwhelmed. This is crazy. Your species has latent cognitive patterns, she continued. Some humans are more sensitive than others. You were one of them. Your mind remembered what your body forgot. Jason rubbed his face, trying to process it all. Why didn't I remember until now? She looked away. Because I buried the memory. He looked up sharply. What? You were not supposed to carry it, she said. Our encounter was brief, accidental. But you reached out. Your mind clung to me. I had to shield you, for your safety and mine. Jason stared at her. So you erased it. I hid it, she said. But not well enough. You kept drawing the stars, the shapes. You kept dreaming. He thought back, nights as a child when he'd woken up in tears, unable to explain the strange visions, the sense of being watched, the stars that didn't look like stars. He thought they were just nightmares. Now, they felt like echoes. Why come back? He asked. After all these years, why now? Saphira walked to the table and pressed her fingers against its surface. The metal rippled again, responding to her touch. From the center of the table, a panel slid open, revealing a small cube, translucent, humming faintly. This is an echo beacon, she said. It detects unique cognitive signals. When yours activated again, I received the call. Jason frowned. I didn't activate anything. You did, when you stopped speaking to others, when your loneliness became louder than any broadcast. Your mind amplified the old connection. And I heard you. Jason stared at the cube, heart pounding. You came because I was lonely. I came because you called, she said, even if you didn't know it. Silence filled the room again, heavy, thick with meaning. Jason reached out slowly and touched the cube. The moment his fingers brushed it, the device pulsed, and a low hum filled the air. Images exploded into the room. Planets, symbols, stars collapsing, cities floating in space. And then, a war. Explosions, armored figures clashing in the sky, screaming, fire. Jason pulled his hand back. What was that? Saphira's expression turned grim. My people, and others, a conflict spanning decades. We've kept our existence hidden for millennia. But there are those who want contact, who want to conquer. Jason swallowed. And you. I wanted to understand, she said, to learn from humans, to protect the boundary. But the others, they don't want peace. They see Earth as a resource, a stepping stone. Jason stood, his voice rising. So we're just in the way. You are more than that, she said quietly. You are different. Your mind, your signal, it's unlike anything we've encountered, and it's growing stronger. Jason took a step back. You're saying I'm, what? Some kind of psychic beacon. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, your DNA is not entirely human. The words hit like a hammer. Jason froze. What? Saphira walked closer. You were born on Earth, but your genetic pattern contains anomalies. Traces of cosmic data, patterns that only exist in the minds of travelers, those who have touched the stars. You think I'm part alien? He asked, stunned. I think, she said softly, you are the bridge between two worlds. Jason turned away, pacing. No, this is insane. I'm just a technician, a dropout. I came here to get away from people, not find out I'm some kind of chosen one. You were not chosen, she said. You were remembered. He looked at her then, and something in her face, something old and sad, made him stop. There was truth in her eyes. Deep, ancient truth. Why are you telling me all this? He asked. She hesitated, then said, because the others have found your signal too, and they're coming. Jason felt the room tilt around him. When? Soon, she said. We must leave this place. I can protect you, but not here. Jason took a shaky breath. Leave? As in, leave Earth. Her voice was calm, final. As in, leave everything behind. He looked out the window, at the familiar red mountains, the solar panels, the empty sky. It had always felt like a prison. Now it felt like home. I don't know if I can do that, he whispered. Saphira walked closer, reaching out. You already have, she said, the moment you remembered me. Jason looked at her, heart pounding. And deep inside, something old, something buried, began to awaken. It wasn't fear. It wasn't confusion. It was destiny. Jason stared out at the orange-tinted horizon. The colony bathed in early twilight, its solar panels casting long crooked shadows across the dirt. A strange silence had fallen over everything, the kind that didn't come from still air, but from anticipation. Like the world itself was waiting for something to break. Inside the habitat dome, Saphira stood at the center of the room, facing the central console. Her fingers moved in a blur over a makeshift interface she had somehow integrated into the old colony network, translating her technology through layers of ancient code, like she was teaching an old dog how to speak a new language. Jason had stopped asking how she did things. There were too many questions and not enough safe answers. He felt different now, not just because of the truth she had shared, that his DNA was not entirely human, but because of the way she looked at him, like he was something sacred, something rare, something dangerous. She had called him a bridge, a signal, a mind that had called out to the stars and been heard. And now, the stars were calling back. Jason leaned against the steel frame of the door, watching her as she worked. Her body moved like water, fluid, precise, silent. The light from her skin pulsed softly, as if her thoughts were alive under her skin. I've sent a scrambled beacon to mislead anyone tracking the signal, she said without turning around. It will buy us time, but not much. Jason crossed his arms. You said they're coming. How close are they? She stopped typing. Close enough. He frowned. And your people? The ones who told you not to come here, do they know you broke the rule? Saphira turned, her expression unreadable. They know. Jason straightened. How? They always know. She walked to the center of the room, and with a subtle wave of her hand, a silver disc lifted from a device strapped to her waist. It floated silently in the air, then emitted a cone of soft light. A face appeared. It was not human. The figure was tall, regal, draped in flowing silver robes that shimmered like liquid, with eyes that blazed like twin stars and a face that seemed carved from moonlight. It was beautiful, terrifying, otherworldly. Jason stepped back instinctively. Saphira bowed her head. High Chancellor Aethros. The hologram's voice was like wind over crystal. Sharp, smooth, cold. Saphira, you broke the Prime Accord. Unauthorized descent. Interaction with an undeveloped species. You stand in violation of Council law. Jason blinked. Undeveloped. The Chancellor's eyes turned toward him, even though it wasn't truly present. The hybrid speaks. Jason felt a chill run through him. I'm not a hybrid, he said carefully. The Chancellor tilted its head. You are not fully human. And yet, you are not one of us. You are a fracture. Jason glanced at Saphira, who stood still, lips tight. Why does that matter? Jason asked. I didn't ask for this. The voice responded coolly. You didn't need to. Your existence is a violation. You are a risk, a variable we cannot control. Jason's chest tightened. So what? You're here to erase me. The Chancellor's tone didn't change. The Council has not yet decided, but containment is already in motion. Jason took a step forward. Containment. Saphira raised a hand gently, warning him back. Jason. No, he said. I deserve to know. The Chancellor's eyes glowed brighter. You were never meant to awaken. Your genetic anomaly was a mistake, a byproduct of ancient contact. We left Earth untouched for a reason. You were an accident. Saphira's voice was tight with anger. He is more than an accident. The Chancellor turned its gaze back to her. You have compromised your mission, your identity, your loyalties. I made a choice, she said. You made a betrayal, it replied. The light flickered, and the image vanished, leaving silence behind. Jason exhaled, stunned. That was your boss. Saphira didn't answer right away. She closed her hand around the disk and lowered it slowly. They are the Council, she said. Our lawgivers, our judges, our watchers. And now they're watching me, Jason muttered. Yes, she said. Because you're waking up, and because I came for you. Jason walked to the table, running a hand through his hair. So what now? They arrest us, wipe my memory, drop a bomb on the colony. They won't destroy you, Saphira said. Not yet, but they will try to erase the bond. Jason looked up. What bond? She hesitated. Then slowly, she removed a thin device from her wrist. It looked like a bracelet made of light. When she placed it on the table, it pulsed once and projected an image, a heartbeat. 2 heartbeats, actually. Intertwined. Identical. This is what happens when an observer sinks too deeply with a human consciousness, she explained. It is forbidden. It is dangerous. But I didn't stop it. I couldn't. Jason stared at the image, mesmerized. This is us. Yes, she whispered. I didn't even know it was happening. I did. He looked at her, and you still let it. I needed to know, she said, stepping closer. If the connection was real, if what I saw in you was more than memory. And now I know. Jason's heart pounded. And what happens if they erase it? Then we both forget, she said softly, and you go back to being alone. He looked at her, really looked at her, this being from the stars who had broken laws, defied her people, and risked exile just to find him, just to answer a call he didn't even know he had sent. A part of him still didn't understand why. But another part, the part that had drawn stars in notebooks and dreamed of silver eyes as a child, knew exactly why. Before he could speak, the lights in the habitat dimmed. A low hum began to build in the walls, like the air was trembling. Saphira's head snapped toward the ceiling. They're here. Jason rushed to the window. A silver drone hovered above the colony, smooth, silent, and watching. More followed, spreading out in a perfect formation. A soft blue light scanned the structures, flickering over the dirt like ghost fire. What are they doing? Jason asked. Locating you, Saphira said. Preparing for extraction. Jason backed away. Can you stop them? I can shield you for now, she said, already moving toward the control panel. But once they find us, they'll send more. Then it won't matter what I want. You'll be taken. Jason stood frozen, watching the sky. He wasn't ready for this. He didn't want to run. But he didn't want to forget either. Not now. Not her. Saphira looked at him. I have a ship. Hidden. Damaged. But repairable. If we leave now, we might reach the asteroid belt before they intercept us. Jason turned to her, fear twisting inside him. Leave? Leave Earth. If we stay, she said, they will erase everything you are. He hesitated. Then slowly he nodded. Then let's go. Saphira moved toward the door, her armor shifting and hardening. A new light glowed beneath her skin, brighter, fiercer. Jason followed her, the wind howling now, and the hum of the drones growing louder above them. He glanced once more at the colony, his tools, his bed, the empty space that had once felt safe. Then he stepped outside into the unknown. Behind them, the sky rippled, and far above, the stars had begun to move. The wind cut through the canyon like a blade as Jason and Saphira moved across the red terrain under the shroud of night. Overhead, the stars shimmered silently, indifferent to the urgency unfolding below. Their glow, once a source of peace for Jason, now felt like 100 watching eyes. They had been running for hours. Saphira led the way, her movements graceful and inhumanly swift, gliding over rocks and slopes as though gravity bent to her will. Jason, breathless and sore, struggled to keep pace. His body, though human, had begun to feel different, stronger, lighter, like his blood was catching up to some ancient memory locked within him. He didn't know if it was fear or adrenaline, or something else entirely. But every time he stumbled, every time doubt clawed at his mind, he remembered her hand pulling him forward. They had left the colony behind. No turning back now. The drones had swarmed the area within minutes. Silent, efficient, non-lethal, but invasive. Jason had seen the beams scan every object, every wall, every biological trace. If he'd stayed even 1 second longer, they would have taken him, erased him. Saphira hadn't spoken much during their escape. Her mind was focused, her instincts sharp. Whatever came next, she was preparing for it. At last, they reached a jagged cliff wall. Saphira stopped, raising her hand toward the rock face. A faint ripple shimmered in the air, and then the surface opened, like a curtain pulled back by invisible fingers. Jason gasped, "Is that your ship?" Saphira nodded. "One of them, damaged during re-entry. I buried it beneath the earth to keep it hidden. It still listens to me." Jason stepped forward cautiously. The inside of the vessel was unlike anything he had seen before, smooth, organic, as if the ship had grown rather than been built. The walls pulsed with a soft inner glow, responding to Saphira's presence. She walked ahead and placed her hand on a curved panel. The lights brightened. The air inside smelled like ozone and metal, and something faintly floral. It was warm, but not uncomfortably so. Jason ran his fingers along the walls. The surface shifted subtly under his touch, almost like skin. "This ship is alive," he whispered. "In a sense," Saphira replied. "It's a neural vessel, half tech, half organic. It responds to emotion, thought, memory." Jason turned to her. "Can it fly?" "Not yet. Its core is damaged. I need time to repair it." Jason looked outside, toward the hills. "How much time do we have?" Saphira didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped into the control chamber and knelt beside the core housing. A faint hum began to rise, and the ship seemed to breathe, responding to her touch, her energy. "Less than 1 Earth rotation," she said finally. Jason cursed under his breath. "That's not much time." "No," she said, "it isn't." He stepped closer. "Tell me what I can do. I want to help." Saphira glanced at him, her eyes softer than before. Your presence alone stabilizes some of the ship's systems. Your genetic code harmonizes with the neural architecture. That's why I brought you here. Jason blinked. So you're saying this ship needs me? It recognizes you, she said, just as I do. He crouched beside her, watching as glowing threads of energy danced between her fingers and the ship's inner core. Why does everything about me feel like a mystery now? Because you are waking up, she said, and waking is never easy. He reached out without thinking, placing his hand on the edge of the core. The moment his skin touched the surface, a surge of warmth shot through him. His heart raced, and images flashed through his mind. Starfields, constellations, voices in languages he didn't speak but somehow understood. Saphira reached for him, steadying him as the light flared between them. The ship responded immediately. A low chime echoed through the chamber, and the lights across the walls pulsed in harmony. Systems booted up one by one. Displays lit. Vents opened. The ship, dormant and broken just moments before, was waking up too. Saphira's voice was almost a whisper. You've bonded with it. Jason opened his eyes. What does that mean? It means, she said, we have a chance. They worked together for hours. Saphira guided him through systems he barely understood, teaching him to think with the ship, to feel its needs, to connect with it not through buttons or switches, but through thought and intent. It wasn't flying a ship, it was becoming part of it. Jason's connection grew quickly, almost too quickly. And with it came dreams, fragments of memories that weren't his. Stars collapsing, worlds burning, a woman's voice crying his name across galaxies. He began to question what part of him had truly come from Earth at all. They took breaks only when absolutely necessary. During one pause, Jason found himself sitting near the entrance, staring at the night sky, the stars now feeling less like points of light and more like destinations. Saphira sat beside him, silent for a long moment. Then she said, "You are stronger than they expected." Jason turned to her. "Who?" "The ones who fear you," she said, "the ones who understand what you could become." He exhaled slowly. "I don't even understand what I could become." "You will," she said. "But first, you must survive." The air around them shifted then. A low vibration passed through the ground. Saphira's head snapped up. "They found us." Jason stood quickly. "Already." "They move faster now. The council doesn't want another defiance." A high-pitched whine pierced the air outside. Jason ran to the entrance and looked out. Hovering over the hills were dark silhouettes. Drones, but larger this time. Heavily armored. Fast. Their blue lights cut through the darkness, scanning, searching, drawing closer with each passing second. "We're not ready," Jason said. "No," Saphira agreed, already moving toward the control panel. "But we don't need to fight them." "What then?" "We distract them." Jason followed her. "How?" She touched a control node. The ship responded by lowering a small platform from the ceiling. Inside it was a small glowing orb. "A decoy," she said. "It holds a fragment of your signature. It will draw them away." Jason looked at it. "And what about us?" "We finish the repairs," she said. "We leave the moment the engine core reaches stability." Jason took a deep breath and nodded. "Do it." She activated the orb, and it rose into the air, shooting out of the ship and into the night. The drones hesitated, then surged after it, their scanners picking up the trail. Jason watched as their lights vanished into the distance. He turned to Saphira, heart still racing. "That won't hold them for long." "It doesn't need to," she said. "Just long enough." He followed her back to the engine chamber, both of them now fully locked in a rhythm of movement and energy. The ship pulsed beneath their feet like a living heart. Jason glanced at her as they worked. "You're risking everything for me." Saphira didn't look up. "You're not the first anomaly I've studied, but you're the only one who remembered me." Jason felt a lump form in his throat. "Why does that matter?" She looked at him then, her voice quiet but certain. Because memory is the first sign of love. The words settled over him like gravity, heavy and impossible to ignore. Outside, the night deepened. The stars watched in silence. And inside, the ship grew stronger, fed by hope, by courage, and by the spark of something neither fully understood, but both refused to lose. The chase wasn't over. It had only just begun. The stars above were silent witnesses as the alien ship pulsed with awakening energy beneath the rocky surface of Terra 9. Within its living walls, Jason stood still, heart pounding as the vessel's core flickered in soft hues of blue and violet, casting ghost-like shadows across the chamber. The repair was nearly complete, the ship now humming like a beast stirring from hibernation. But something else stirred too, something inside Jason. Saphira had warned him it might happen. The bond. He didn't understand all of it, not yet, but he could feel it growing, a quiet thread that had wrapped itself between them, pulsing with shared thoughts and emotions. It wasn't just about memory or technology anymore. It was something deeper. Every time he looked at her, his mind felt lighter, sharper, like she was anchoring a part of him he hadn't realized had been drifting. He was changing, and she knew it. Saphira stood at the ship's neural hub, her fingers moving through glowing strands of data that shifted and curled like living silk. Her armor shimmered faintly, responding to her mood, an emotional display Jason had started to understand. She was calm, focused, but underneath that surface, worried. She hadn't said much since launching the decoy that bought them time. But Jason could feel the weight she carried. Her rebellion, her choice to bond with him. It had changed the course of both their lives. She'd broken the law of her people, turned her back on 1,000 years of strict non-contact orders. For him. And yet, she had not asked for thanks. She hadn't even asked for trust. Only time. Jason walked slowly toward her. The ship's almost ready, right? Saphira nodded. 72% system integration. Flight capability, restored. Neural stability, pending. He frowned. What does that mean? She turned to face him. It means your bond with the ship must fully mature before we can leave safely. Jason raised a brow. You mean the ship won't fly unless I'm fully linked? It can fly, she said, but it won't protect you. It won't obey your intent. Without the bond, it's just a vessel. With it, it becomes part of you. Jason took a deep breath, stepping closer to the core. He had already touched it before, felt its warmth, its strange way of knowing him. But this time, he hesitated. What happens if I complete the bond? Saphira's eyes flickered softly. You won't be the same. Jason studied her. You mean I won't be human anymore? No, she said gently. You'll be more. He stared at his hands. He still saw a technician's hands. Greasy, calloused, human. But there were times lately, especially when he was near her, when they glowed faintly in the dark, a soft light like her own. His mind was faster, clearer. He remembered things he'd never seen. He could predict the ship's responses before they happened. Saphira, he said quietly, what happens to you when the bond completes? She looked away. Saphira, he pressed. Tell me. She took a long breath, then met his gaze. When an observer completes a soul bond with another, the connection becomes permanent. I will see through your eyes, feel what you feel. If you die, I will too. Jason's stomach dropped. Then why would you let this happen? She smiled softly. Because some things are worth the risk. He looked at her, eyes searching for doubt. He found none. The ship pulsed again, this time brighter, like it was calling him, inviting him to choose. Jason stepped forward and placed both hands on the core. A rush of sensation flooded through him. He saw stars colliding, felt the echo of ancient voices singing in languages too beautiful to describe. He saw glimpses of other observers, watching from the edge of space, their eyes filled with cold purpose. And then he saw Saphira, alone, watching Earth from orbit, her heart locked in duty, her soul cracking in silence. And then, him. The little boy she had seen long ago, staring up at the sky, drawing pictures of her in notebooks. She had never forgotten. Not once. While he had grown, lived, and forgotten, she had remembered. The bond surge. Jason's knees buckled, but he didn't let go. The ship wrapped around him like liquid light, forming symbols in the air, embedding knowledge directly into his mind. He felt Saphira's presence, closer than ever. Not beside him, but within him. Her voice was in his head now. Clear. Calm. "You're almost there." He opened his eyes, gasping. Saphira stood in front of him, her hand reaching out. He took it, and in that moment, the bond completed. A wave of energy burst through the ship, shaking the walls with silent thunder. Lights exploded in every direction, the vessel glowing brighter than ever before. The core now pulsed in perfect rhythm with Jason's heartbeat. The controls responded to his presence like he was their creator. He was part of the ship now, and Saphira was part of him. They stood there, connected by something stronger than blood or technology, a fusion of minds, of hearts, of destinies. Jason didn't know how to describe what he felt. It was more than love. It was recognition of each other, of purpose. Suddenly, alarms lit up across the ship's interface. Incoming signal. Council class interceptor. Jason turned to her. "They're here." Saphira's armor shifted into battle state, sleek, sharp, ready. But her eyes remained calm. "Then we fly." The ship responded instantly to her command. No, their command. Panels closed, engines warmed, and the chamber restructured around them, placing them at the helm. Jason could feel every vibration of the vessel now, like it was breathing with him. Outside, a bright silver tear opened in the sky, a rift in space-time. The Council's ship had arrived. Jason gritted his teeth. "Can we outrun them?" "We don't have to," Saphira said. "We just have to survive long enough to jump." The ground trembled. The cliff face shattered as the alien interceptor descended, its hull bristling with strange weapons and swirling lights. Jason closed his eyes and reached out, not with his hands, but with his mind. The ship responded, lifting from the ground with a roar of energy, shields forming like glowing wings. The Council ship fired. Jason swerved instinctively, the vessel rolling sideways through the canyon as beams of light scorched the rock around them. The ship moved like it knew his thoughts before he even formed them. It danced through the air, twisting, rising, dodging. Saphira stood beside him, projecting a shield field from her body. She absorbed several blasts with her armor, the impacts rippling through her like waves across water. Jason could feel her pain through the bond, but also her strength. "We need a jump point," he shouted. "There," she pointed. "Open space, beyond the ridge." Jason pushed the ship toward the stars, the bond between them guiding every motion. Behind them, the Council ship gave chase, faster and more powerful. But Jason wasn't afraid anymore. He knew who he was now. Not just a technician, not just a mistake. He was the bridge. As they crested the ridge, Saphira activated the jump core. Space folded around them in a swirl of color and sound. "Hold on," she whispered. Jason took her hand, and together, they vanished into the stars. But the bond remained. Stronger than law, stronger than fear, unbreakable. They emerged from the jump in silence, not the kind of silence that comes from the absence of sound, but the deep otherworldly hush that exists between stars, where gravity drifts like a ghost and time forgets how to move forward. The ship hung there, weightless, its silver hull shimmering against a black canvas dotted with suns and icy moons, nebulae blooming in slow motion in the distance. Jason floated just above the control cradle, the neural bond still humming inside him. His fingers tingled from the strain of the jump. His thoughts felt stretched across galaxies. Yet he was calm. He opened his eyes and saw her, Saphira, standing in the center of the chamber, her expression unreadable, but her presence grounding him like gravity itself. Her silver armor had dimmed now, her body no longer in defense mode, but something about her posture suggested she was bracing herself. Jason lowered himself onto the ship's floor, letting out a breath that felt like it had been trapped in his lungs for hours. "We made it." Saphira nodded, but her gaze was fixed on a point beyond the viewing pane. Jason followed her eyes. Ahead of them, rising out of the starlight, was a structure that dwarfed anything he had ever imagined. The vast station, built into the skeleton of a hollowed asteroid, rotating gently in the void. It pulsed with the same silver-blue energy as Saphira's armor. Long corridors branched out like limbs, and ships, strange and graceful, docked along its edges like birds perching on a massive tree. The Council. Jason's stomach tightened. Why here? Why not keep running? Saphira turned to him slowly. Because we can't run forever. And because they summoned us. Jason frowned. They what? She reached into her armor and pulled out a crystalline shard. It glowed faintly with lines of alien script. A beacon. It activated during the jump. It's a summons from the High Chancellor. They want to speak with you. Jason took a step back. You're joking. After everything they've done, sending drones, calling me a fracture, they want to talk. They've seen the bond now, Saphira said. They'd felt it. Denying your existence is no longer possible. You are no longer a secret. You're a signal. Jason ran a hand through his hair. Great, so I'm a political issue now. You're more than that, she said gently. You're a choice. The ship guided itself toward the station, slipping into one of the docking arms with a smooth click. Lights inside dimmed. Gravity returned in a gentle wave. Jason felt every nerve in his body tighten as the hatch opened and soft light spilled into the corridor beyond. Saphira touched his arm. Whatever happens next, remember what we are. Jason met her eyes. What are we, Saphira? She held his gaze, her voice soft. We are one. They stepped out together into the corridor, where robed figures awaited them. Their faces were partially hidden beneath glowing veils, but their presence was unmistakable, powerful, ancient, and watching. No one spoke. They were led through silent halls carved from crystal and metal, the walls humming with the thoughts of 1,000 voices. Jason could feel them, now, the whispers of the council, the judgment pressing down like invisible weights. And still he walked forward, side by side with the woman who had defied all of it to find him. At the end of the corridor, doors opened with a soft sigh, revealing a vast chamber bathed in silver light. At its center stood the High Chancellor, Ethros, the same being Jason had seen in the transmission. But this time, no longer a projection. In person, Ethros was taller, older, and even more alien. Its face shimmered like fluid metal, its eyes deep and endless. It did not move as they entered. It merely watched. Jason stood straight, defiant. You wanted to see me. Ethros studied him. You are not what we expected. Jason shrugged. You're exactly what I expected. Another voice spoke, a softer one. A female figure emerged from the shadows, her eyes glowing faintly. He speaks without fear. Jason turned toward her. Why should I be afraid? You already tried to erase me. The Chancellor raised a hand. No, only to erase what you represented. The unknown, the uncontrollable. And now? Jason asked. Now we see you, the Chancellor replied. And we see the bond. Saphira stepped forward. I bonded with him. Freely. Completely. You broke the Prime Accord. Another voice echoed. You defied your design. I chose him, she said, and I would choose him again. Silence fell. The council stood motionless, their expressions unreadable. Jason took a breath and stepped forward. I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't even know what I was until she told me. I'm not here to fight your laws. I'm not here to be a bridge, or a weapon, or some prophecy. He looked around the chamber. I'm here because someone saw me when no one else did, because she remembered me when I didn't even remember myself. And if that scares you, if that bond scares you, then maybe you should be asking why. The chamber dimmed slightly, as though the station itself were processing his words. Saphira stood at his side, unwavering. At last, the High Chancellor moved forward. You were meant to be a silence in the dark, Jason Hale, a forgotten echo. But your voice has become too loud. Jason narrowed his eyes. Then listen to it. Another pause. Then, slowly, the Chancellor extended its hand. There is one option. Jason hesitated. What kind of option? You leave this galaxy, the Chancellor said. With her, you go where none of us will follow. You live, and we do not interfere. But the bond remains outside our borders. Forever. Jason glanced at Saphira. Her eyes said everything. He turned back. And if I refuse? The Council's glow pulsed. Then we erase the bond. And you both forget. Each other. This moment. Everything. Jason didn't answer right away. He stepped closer to Saphira, taking her hand. Their connection pulsed between them, bright, quiet, strong. He looked back at the Council. Then we accept your offer. Saphira looked at him. You're sure? Jason nodded. You came to find me when you had every reason to stay away. You risked your life, your name, your world. If leaving this galaxy means we get to live, then let's go. The Council parted silently. Moments later, Jason and Saphira returned to their ship, now cleared for departure. The vessel shimmered as they boarded, sensing the decision had been made. As they prepared to launch, Saphira placed a hand on the control core. Are you afraid? Jason shook his head. Not anymore. Not with you. The stars awaited. With a final burst of light, their ship surged forward, breaking free from the station, from judgment, from everything that had once held them back. They passed beyond the reach of the Council, beyond the mapped regions of space, into the unknown. Jason looked over at her, smiling. You once asked me why I helped you. She turned. Yes. I think I understand now, he said. I didn't help a stranger that night. I found the part of me that had been missing my entire life. Saphira leaned closer. And what do you see now? He touched the core, feeling its heartbeat sync with his own. A future, he said. Then together, they vanished into the stars, no longer fugitives, but pioneers, the bond unbroken, their love eternal, and their answer changed everything.